Wrestling with a subtle twist in federal law, the High Court rules on the question, can failing to act still count as using physical force against someone? Nine Robes uses nonpartisan, everyday language to focus on the facts of what the Supreme Court is saying. Here, you'll find clear, concise summaries of every Supreme Court opinion, stripped of legalese and clickbait headlines. Each post breaks down the facts, explains the court's reasoning, and highlights the crucial details that often go unnoticed. It's not just about what the court decided, it's about why those decisions matter, to give you a deeper understanding of the cases that define our nation's legal landscape. These summaries are generated by AI. Be careful and consult reputable sources when in doubt. In Delligatti vs. United States, Justice Clarence Thomas, joined by 6 other justices, said yes. If you knowingly cause serious injury or death, even by omission, you use physical force under the law. So a crime like New York second-degree murder, which can happen by ignoring a legal duty, still counts as a crime of violence. Salvatore Delligatti, a member of the Genovese crime family, was indicted for recruiting associates to murder a suspected informant and supplying them with a loaded revolver. The government charged him under a law which imposes a mandatory consecutive 5-year sentence for using or carrying a firearm during and in relation to any crime of violence. Vicar attempted murder was grounded in New York second-degree murder, defined as intentionally causing death. Delligatti moved to dismiss on the ground that second-degree murder, as defined in New York, which can be committed by omission of a legal duty, does not have as an element the use of physical force within the Elements Clause. The district court denied the motion, and the Second Circuit affirmed, relying on United States v. Castleman to hold that intentional causation involves the use of physical force and thus qualifies as a crime of violence. The Supreme Court granted certiorari to decide whether an individual who causes bodily injury or death by failing to take action uses physical force within the meaning of the Elements Clause. Justice Thomas, writing for a 7-2 majority, affirmed. Applying the categorical approach, the court held that the knowing or intentional causation of injury or death, whether by act or omission, necessarily involves the use of physical force. Relying on Castleman, the majority extended its 2-step reasoning. 1. Deliberate causation of bodily harm cannot occur without force. And 2. Intentional application of force, direct or indirect, is a use of force. Although Castleman involved misdemeanor-level battery force and Bacchus 924C requires violent force, another case, Stokeling, established that any force sufficient to cause injury or death meets Bacchus 924C's threshold. The court then rejected Delligatti's challenge that omissions lack use of force against another. Ordinary usage permits one to use a pre-existing force by inaction, like if a parent were to with food, and against the person, simply specifies the force's conscious object. Finally, the historic meaning of crime of violence, encompassing causes and results offenses like murder by omission, confirmed that indictments for New York second-degree murder fall squarely within Statute 924C. Justice Gorsuch, joined by Justice Jackson, dissented. They argued that the statute's text, use of physical force against the person of another, contemplates only active, violent physical acts, not omissions. The dissent emphasized that use carries an active meaning, that omissions do not involve employing force, and that, contrary to the majority, a statutory definition must prevail over presumed legislative purpose or selective precedential readings. Section 924C defines crime of violence through 2 clauses. Elements Clause, a federal felony that has as an element the use of physical force against the person or property of another. Residual Clause, an offense that by its nature involves a substantial risk that physical force may be used. In Davis, the court invalidated the residual clause for vagueness, leaving only the Elements Clause. Courts apply the categorical approach, comparing the statutory elements, not a defendant's conduct, to Spec 994C. Dispute centers on use of physical force. Is it restricted to affirmative violent acts, or does it encompass knowing causation by omission? The majority embraces a holistic reading, grounded in Castleman, Stokeling, and historical common law definitions of violent offenses. while the dissent remains faithful to a text-first approach that sees use as necessarily active. This interpretive divide reflects broader tensions in criminal law between textual precision, ordinary meaning, and purposive alignment with prototypical violent crimes. Find us online at 9robes.ai. That's the number, 9robes.ai. Like and share this podcast with friends that like to be informed. 9 Robes provides AI summaries of U.S. Supreme Court cases. AI makes mistakes. People make mistakes too. We genuinely do our best to provide you with the most accurate summaries, but our best sometimes includes errors.